Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I come to the floor today to oppose Jonathan Kobus' nomination to serve on the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. You know, people across the country know how important it is that we fight back against extreme and extremely unqualified judicial nominees. Earlier this year, during Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation, we saw just how far President Trump and Senate Republicans are willing to go to jam through extreme judges who will work to strip away women's rights. But that wasn't all we saw. We saw millions of women and men across the country inspired to stand up and fight back against his nomination. We saw people speak out and share their own personal stories about what was at stake, about sexual assault, and how important it is that we believe survivors about the right to safe legal abortions and what it means for women and their families, and about what kind of country we want to live in. And we saw, without question, that people across the country want us to stop President Trump from swinging our courts far right by packing them with ideological judges. Judges like Mr. Kobus, who will continue the Trump-Pence agenda of rolling back women's rights and access to health care. Mr. President, making sure families know exactly what Mr. Kobus would mean for women if he is seated is what I'm here to do today. It means weaker rights and less access to health care. Because like many of President Trump's nominees before him, Mr. Kobus lacks almost any real experience to qualify him for a seat on the 8th Circuit Court. He has little trial experience, little appellate experience, and no record of legal scholarship to speak of. And I'm not the only one concerned by that. The American Bar Association has rated him unqualified. That makes Mr. Kobus the 6th judicial nominee from President Trump opposed by his professional colleagues. But the thin record he does have is disqualifying, because it shows he will put extreme right-wing ideology ahead of women and science. Mr. Kobus is an outspoken advocate for fake women's health care centers, sometimes called crisis pregnancy centers, that seek out women looking for information about their health care needs and reproductive rights, and then use misleading, blatantly false propaganda to scare and pressure them. Mr. Kobus even went out of his way to represent some of these fake clinics free of charge. He voluntarily defended a law requiring providers to give a lecture full of ideological propaganda and fear-mongering to women seeking safe legal abortions. The required lecture in this case actually went so far as to demand providers lie to women and claim abortions increase their risk of suicide. It does not. Think about that. He argued for a law that directly interfered with the relationship between a patient and her health care provider. A law that said women making their own decisions about their own bodies and seeking health care that is their constitutional right should be lied to, should be frightened out of a decision with fake information, including fake information about suicide. That is utterly wrong and disqualifying for any judicial nominee. And Mr. Kobus hasn't merely represented these fake clinics. He served on the board of an organization which aimed to deceive and frighten women out of getting abortions. It is clear he wasn't chosen for his bona fides in the legal field. He doesn't have them. Mr. President, women and men across the country are paying attention. They know what is at stake. Hours before the final vote on Judge Kavanaugh, I came here to speak about how angry I was when the Senate failed Anita Hill in 1991 and confirmed Justice Thomas, how I decided to run for the Senate after that so I could fight to change things, and how I hoped everyone who was angry about Judge Kavanaugh would stay angry and keep fighting for change. And I also promised right here that whatever happened, I was going to get up the next day and keep fighting too, and I meant it. I'm going to keep standing up, speaking out, and making clear just how harmful President Trump's ideological nominees are. I strongly oppose Mr. Kobus' nomination. I hope all of our colleagues will do the same. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.